This is the defending champ who will only have a chance to advance if he is fortunate enough not to get some yellows here.
Side by side and carnage in turn one. Out front is Christopher Bell. Cindric, if he gains a position, he'll be tied with Larson.
And he is in a battle back here. Oh, the two's are in.
8 and around goes to 2. Briscoe trying to grab another position. The fight for the final transfer spot. Briscoe. He's done it. He's eliminated the reigning champion.
We're out. I'm sorry. So sorry. I let you all down.
He has done it. He's won his way into the round of 8.
This whole last 2 weeks, I had been extremely depleted. Just kind of down in the dumps, and now I can promise you I'm as excited as ever heading into these next 3 races.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Inside the Race, the show that digs deeper on all the action you see on Sundays. I'm Alan Cavana, joined by two of the best from the Motor Racing Network, Todd Gordon, and from NBC Sports, Steve Letarte. And man, did we see a great race on Sunday that just got a little crazy at the end, and now we have our final 8 moving forward.
Yeah, the tale of 2 races. The first 2 stages kind of ran like we expected, pretty clean, some pretty decent strategy. It was interesting to see what the priority was for some of the non-playoff guys. The playoff guys did, I think, what we all expected. Then I think we were just all holding our breath, waiting for the field to get bunched up at some point in the final stage, and when it did, it looked like the Roval that we knew we could get in those final laps.
You've been through this chaos before.
Yeah, definitely. It was funny because we particularly talked about this place having 4 or 5 cautions, and it didn't have them. And you wondered if it was going to lull all the way through. Chase Elliott had a pretty decent lead. It was kind of pretty straightforward at that point, and then some signboard comes out and ends up in the groove. They had to throw a caution for that one. Too wide racing through there was going to be an issue, and that shook it all up for the rest of the race.
Yeah, certainly a domino that fell. Let's show you what we're going to talk about today. What's on the box? Because walk-off at the Roval. Christopher Bell moves on after a great pit call and drive in those final few restarts. We will break all of that down. Then there was the pull for the final spot of frenzy. Chase Briscoe makes it. Austin Cindric doesn't. We'll show you why an early restart changed everything in this race and what happened to the defending champion, Kyle Larson, no longer defending. And then there were 8, the October Octagon, the 8 going forward. We'll preview the next round, and again, we will have a new champion here in 2022. And one of those drivers could be Christopher Bell, because what he did on Sunday, he had one option and one option only, and for much of the day, didn't look like he was going to be that car to get that win. Let's go through the day and show us how he got there.
Well, they had a decent car. I didn't think it was a winning car for most of the day, but a decent car. They did everything right. It was in a day of mistakes, they really didn't make any, right? So, Todd, if we take a look, everything's kind of like you want, right? He goes ahead, he pits before the end of this stage, which gives him track position, right? Then he pits again, which gives him track position. But then in the end, the problem is, he's just okay, right? He's inside the top 10, having an okay day, and then the cautions come out. And in my mind, that was it. That was when Adam Stevens called the race, as he should, as we discussed the whole way. Hey, this was a must-win. You have to do something different. So the different was, hey, if they stay out, I'm pitting. If they pit, I stay out. They ended up staying on the racetrack, they being most of the leaders. And from just inside the top 10, Christopher Bell comes to pit road.
Easy call.
For the last tire run, he'd run 6th or 7th behind these groups. On a restart, he wasn't going to pass them. And Adam had to look at this and just absolutely grin when the top 6 stayed out, because that gave him an opportunity. Came down pit road, put 4 tires on. I think Adam did a really good job of executing this, because the car wasn't just the new tire fast. It was like qualifying fast.
Yeah.
He took care of his air pressures. He did what he had to make this car. It had a phenomenal run the first lap when we went back to green.
And here's the restart.
Yeah, a little lucky, little skill. Christopher Bell misses the wreck with the 48, and then he just knows he has to go. Remember, he's thinking there's only a couple, 3 laps at this point. So while he does miss the wreck, it's attack, attack, attack. And the key is, as he gains positions, he somehow continues forward momentum. Sometimes you kind of jump in front of a guy, throw the brakes and lose, but watch right here. He's chasing the 14 down. He's going to drive into the outside of the 14, then does a nice crossover. But really, in my mind, the momentum exiting turn 8 onto the banking, Todd, as good as we had seen all day.
Yeah, it made a good arc out here in 6 and 7 around traffic, and then a crossover on Denny here when he gets a little bit, sorry, it's not this one, but exiting with the 16 and crossing over the 16 here. maintained your momentum, as you talked about, forward march the whole time, and that kept him in touch with the 4-car leading.
Yeah, well, and the key was we talked to him under that last caution, right, and said, hey, what do you think? He thought he had a chance to win it before this restart, but look what he does. What he does is just very, impressive race car driving. He doesn't push the 4 low. He runs the top of turn 1, uses those fresh tires, and instantly you see, while there is a ton of chaos behind for Christopher Bell, it was 2 clean laps and then stand on the roof with his hands in the air. That's what I'm looking for if I need a win.
He had the tires, and it was just up to the driver. The driver got it done.
Yeah, driver definitely got it done. And, in his defense of what he did, Kevin Harvick on old tires maintained second for the rest of the race. Nobody else on new tires got by him.
Yeah, I was shocked. I actually don't think he needed that last restart. I wasn't sure, but then when we talked to him, he goes, man, I think I was going to get the 4 anyway. And I talked to Harvick this week, and he said much the same. He goes, I don't know if I could have held him off even without that final restart.
I thought it would have been an interesting show if
Yeah.
it went down to that. It was going to be the last
Yeah.
lap, and one of those chicane corners was going to be the one that was there. But
Harvick might not have finished second
Yeah.
if they would have had to go that way.
very good point.
Great pit calls, great drive from Christopher Bell. Remember, he started 12th on that second to last restart, drove all the way up to the front, and moves on because he got the victory. That's the one end. Let's talk about the other end of the point standings, because the last few laps of chaos really changed everything. And we're going to specifically highlight Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric. They went into the day essentially straight up, right? It's tied in points, and one of them was going to advance, or both of them could have advanced, but it was going to come down to a battle, it felt like, between those two. Let's take a look at their days, because we got it on the graph about how they did.
Well, so much is going to be made about the end, and we're going to get to that because that really was one of the big deciding factors. But in my mind, it was much earlier. If you look at the first stage, the 2 out-qualifies the 14. He starts up front. They both do what they need to do. They both score stage points. Everything's fine. They flip spots on pit road. The big difference is right here. The 14 after the restart is going this way. The 2, nice and flat. And Todd, you brought it up. It really happened right away at the start of stage 2, and they dropped the green flag. Briscoe and Cindric put on 2 very different
video here.
views.
First lap of this one, and we put them side by side here for you in front of you. First lap, these guys come out side by side. Really, if you look at it, we've got the 2 car on the bottom here, the 14 on the top. In the 2 car, you're looking.
So am I looking right? This is the 14. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
So they were one position apart, but how this restart went and how well the 14 car executed this. Watch it going forward.
Well, we've seen this. This was Chase Briscoe's kind of signature all day long, aggression and speed on new tires. So on the top, gaining spots, on the 2 car on the bottom, getting boxed in. I mean, not that he could do much else. They're too wide in front of him. Chase Briscoe continues to attack. You see William Byron to your left. Now it's going to be Joey Hand in the 15 to your left. He, much like we pointed out with the 20, is continuing that momentum, right? He's passing cars and moving forward. Passes a car and moves forward. And this becomes clearer than ever. When they leave the infield and climb up to the high banks, it's the same shot. We have Cindric on bottom, Briscoe on top. So we're going to take a freeze right here. And this is going to be hard to see, right? So we have Briscoe. You see the yellow car up front. That's Joey Logano. Right, let me give you some reference. That group of cars, this is the 14. Way up there in front of the 2. I don't know how many cars.
There's got to be 9.
Yeah, a bunch of cars. That changed the second stage for the 2 and the 14.
Half a lap, that much gap. They were right next to each other at the start-finish line. Half a lap, that gap changed everything.
And that was impacted by pit road. The 14 passed the 2. Now, you don't know that that's going to happen, but the fact that the 14 flipped positions with the 2 got him in the right lane for the restart. We don't choose here.
Right.
We line up at road courses, so how you come off pit road on and even depends on what lane you're in. That's what set this up, but you see it. Very aggressive driving, like Steve talked about. Chase did a really good job of being able to run and not break momentum and pass cars. That 9 positions that we had right here,
Yep.
that set the race in 2 different places for those 2 guys.
Yep. It sets up the end of the second stage, really, because that gap was always maintained.
It does, but racing happens. You're going to lose spots. But then the real mistake that I think cost the 2 happened between the engineering and the crew chief and how they then managed it. I understand he lost spots, but that's racing. It's right here. It's the end of stage 2. What you cannot do in road course racing is you either A, need to pit with 2 or 3 to go in the stage and get track position when everybody chooses to pit at the stage end, or B, run to the stage end to score stage points. That's what the 14 did. It wasn't a lot, but he's inside the top 10. He gets a couple stage points. The 2 of Austin Cindric didn't pit before the stage and didn't score stage points. And I'm frustrated by the call. I understand maybe the 9, you don't know what he's going to do. The 21, a technical alliance car, you should understand what he's doing.
Yep.
And then the leaders were so far out, they pitted and blended in front of the 2 car. And I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of programs and stuff, but with a calculator and a stopwatch, you should know you're more than 25 seconds behind the leaders. They're going to be able to pit and blend in front of you. So now, no stage points, and then look what happens. You give up all your track position with no points in your bucket. That in my mind was the big miss for the 2.
So essentially, at some point during that second stage, the crew chief has to realize we're not going to get stage points and flip the strategy. Is that what needs to go happen?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it didn't happen.
It did, and it's a call that didn't get exercised. And Jeremy Bullins made the comment on the radio right after that, said, "I made a mistake." You know, he owned it up and went forward. But that set up the rest of the race because they didn't get the stage points. And they don't have track position at a place that track position mattered, especially for the 2 car. They didn't march forward like the 14 did on restarts.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jeremy Bullins knows what he's doing. He's won the Daytona 500. I've made worse mistakes.
Yes.
But that doesn't make this
Me too.
any different of a mistake. It's still just a mistake in strategy that cost the 2 maybe a couple points. We don't really know, but it was either a couple points or some track position.
Well, let's go to the end of the race, or toward the end of the race when the chaos starts happening, because there are more decisions to be made, right? The cautions start coming out. The 2 car can pit or he can stay out. What's he do, Steve?
Well, he decides to stay on the racetrack. Todd and I have a good conversation about this because I'm of the opinion this was a mistake. I wanted to see the 2 car have fresh tires, but Todd, you watched the day, you think the opposite.
I've looked at the line graph. When he started 20th, he stayed 20th. I don't see that I can match the strategy of the cars I've got to get in front of. At this point, I'm out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I've got to find 9 spots. There's 9 spots laying in front of me if I stay out. Let him play defense against those guys getting back by him. And until he spun out, he was in the right position.
That's when the chaos starts.
Well, so defend this call. The call about strategy in stage 2 is a slow-moving call that's coming at you, right? This call, regardless of how it turned out, it's a coin flip.
Yep.
Right? It's easy to decide what you would have done after you know the results, and my opinion is obviously skewed because I know the results. So this is the hot seat. This is where no crew chief wants to be because I'm not sure there is a right answer until you know what the next couple restarts are going to look like.
The other thing he had, if you don't watch back on that, the 22 car stayed out behind him. You've got a little bit of teamwork that can help you create a buffer to where the sticker cars were. And we saw cars that, when the guys, the 22 earlier in the day, had stayed out for stage 1. He and the 24 were the 2 best cars at the beginning. They couldn't march forward on new tires. And that's 4 or 5 laps. This is 25 to 30, but to the point, the 4 car still finished second. So I don't know how much the tires would have done for him.
All right, so we know Austin Cindric had a little track position there, but then the action starts happening on track. It's still straight up race with Briscoe. Briscoe spins out.
Yeah, I mean, right here just makes a mistake, right? He gets in a little bit shallow, I think. You're going to see right here, he's kind of on the 31's bumper. I don't know if he gets high, just gets tagged from the back. I mean, this is what the Roval looks like. You saw the bright yellow 2 car go by. So now you have Briscoe sitting backwards. Then the caution comes out for the curbing, which, for the record, A+. That's a very heavy piece of curbing sitting in the bus stop. Would have really destroyed a race car. So then the decision is what you do. Cindric at this point says, well, I'm going to stay on the racetrack because I'm in an okay position. Briscoe, this is a no-brainer. You're basically last, so you might as well come get some fresh tires. That's what Chase Briscoe did. And now that ball is definitely in the hands of the driver.
And Johnny Klossmeyer's looked at this all day long. Every time we put this guy on new tires, the first lap has gone straight vertical. He's made 7, 8, 9 spots and didn't lack for doing it again.
All right, but Briscoe wasn't the only one to spin.
Well,
the
yes.
2 car then spins on the next restart.
So I think what we have to watch is this 2 car, right? He gets down in the corner. He gets into the back of the 6, gets checked up, gets turned around by the 43. And as you're going to watch him go backwards, you're going to see the 14 come through. But this only tells part of the story, right? The 2 spins out, which kind of makes it look like that was what the difference was for the 14. But the drive for the 14 on that final restart was as good as anything we have seen at all. To be honest, I was in the booth. We didn't know who we were trying to watch. Was it Cindric? Was it Briscoe? Who was going to make it in? And we want to watch Christopher Bell try to win the race. But that 14 car, that first lap on the final restart is as impressive as I have seen out of a race car driver. We're going to go on board. There's
It's
so
fun to
much you could
watch.
talk about. It is so fun to watch. This could go bad in so many spots.
And Todd, they were saying the tires are pumped up. This is like qualifying trim, essentially.
Yeah, and he just did a good job. Shoot in the middle, but being in position to be able to turn left, get under this, cleared a bunch of cars there in turn 1.
Yeah, now we're in the infield. We're kind of the second half of the infield. We talked about momentum. Watch this. He's going to jump to the left of the 23. This is the one you referenced earlier because it's another great crossover move. Something we saw earlier on the 16. He's going to get inside the 11 of Denny Hamlin right here, climbing the banking, and get such great acceleration that he easily clears these two, heads down in, and this is where it kind of all paid off, right? They all get stacked up. There's the person he's racing, the 2 of Austin Cindric backwards. The 14 goes by. You could watch those restarts 4 more times and get a different highlight reel.
Full
So
send.
much to go.
By the time he came back to turn 8 on that next lap, he
Yeah.
was transferred.
Yeah.
Transferred. He'd got himself to a position. He'd passed enough cars. It was just an impressive drive. We saw it happen after stage 1 and after stage 2. He did it again there. His ability on cold tires was the only person I saw run it, the 20 car. We saw that run.
The stat I love the best, there's been 26 cutoff races in this playoff format since 2014. 50% have been decided by 3 points or less.
Wow.
So when we say every
Those
position
points.
matters,
Yes.
you advance or you don't advance by 3 points or less half the time.
Yeah.
You got to count every single position.
Every single one. And all that stuff's going on while the bar's sort of moving, right? Because there were other cars that had issues, namely Kyle Larson. We have to talk about him and Daniel Suarez. Let's tee up Kyle Larson first because the defending champion trying to move on, but he makes his own mistake and essentially takes himself out of the playoffs. And we got great video of it from his in-car. This is where it happens.
Yeah, it's a simple mistake, right? Driving very hard, just loses the back of the car. Nothing egregious. We've seen race cars drivers make this, but Todd and I have an opinion on, how egregious it is because of the position he was in. Kyle Larson wins a lot of races and won a championship being aggressive. We saw that early in his career hurt him, a few mistakes. He said it in his interview, too many mistakes. But Todd, you think it's more than just the driver really when it comes to the 5?
I feel like crew chief and spotter have to coach this. You've got a guy in the car that's focused on just being 100% all the time. At this point of the race, when he got into here, all he had to do was finish in the lead lap.
Yeah.
Someplace in the lead lap. Somebody's got to give him down in distance, right? Somebody's got to tell him, I need 80%. Let's not be a victim of our own decision here.
Yeah.
And finish this race. Because if he doesn't go 5 laps down, he's easily through.
Easily. And tough day for the 5. Tough day also for the 99 because, look, he was having a good day, scored all sorts of stage points. The power steering, a mechanical issue, Steve. These are the kind of nights that keep a crew chief up at night.
So this is a struggle I have for the 99 is we saw a bunch of steering issues. It's a weak point in this race car, but I can't sit here today with confidence and say, is this self-induced or is this an issue that they couldn't avoid? And the reason I say that, because while it was an impressive drive by Suarez, you see the 50 easily driving by, the rack and pinion doesn't work without power steering. The day before, we saw some ECR motors, namely in the 21 and a couple Cala cars, lose power steering. Different system, a few components could be the same. Bristol, we saw many cars have it. We only had one at the Roval. So we're going to have to dig into this a little bit. Maybe we'll never know. The simple fact is it was a mechanical gremlin that took the 99 and Daniel Suarez out. Even it was a hard-fought drive, but you can only do so much.
Yeah, there are 6 stages in this round, right? They scored stage points in 5 of them, both Larson and the 99 of Daniel Suarez, and both failed to move on. All those positions, they matter at the end. Let's look at the standings without Daniel Suarez, without Kyle Larson as we move forward. Pick out some guys, Todd. Who are you looking at? Chase Elliott, obviously the big lead. Who are you looking at in this next 3 races?
Yeah, I started the season, I thought Chase Elliott, I thought Joey Logano. I think he's got the nerve and they executed what they needed to yesterday. Denny Hamlin, I think, he's been good. They haven't put it all together, but they've put enough of it together to be there. And obviously the run that Christopher Bell had puts him in a great position coming forward into 2 mile-and-a-halves that the Toyotas have been strong at.
You tell me what stat matters, and I'll tell you who I should be looking at. Here's why.
Tell me the
William
right
Byron.
stat.
So William Byron, he won Martinsville, so why not? He has a win at Miami in his career. He can run well there. Ross Chastain has scored over 60 points more than every other driver at mile-and-a-half tracks this year. 60 points. That's a whole race more. So with 2 mile-and-a-halves in this next round, why not Ross Chastain? Christopher Bell has the hot hand. Chase Briscoe showed some drive and determination. The big thing for me is the very simple look at the split. The worst guy's -9. Chase has a little bit of a head start, but he's the only one. So it is going to be a real heavyweight battle. There's only 3 races. There's 4 spots. So someone's going to get it on points.
And I mean, the system that we've had and the winners that we've had, non-playoff winners.
Yeah.
We've got good cars in the 5, the 8, the 18, the 4 out that could win these 2 races and leave it where it's all a points race.
Yes, the round of 8 is set. It's going to be so exciting, and it all starts this weekend in Las Vegas for the South Point 400. This weekend, 2:30 Eastern on Sunday on NBC. Make sure you watch the start of the round of 8. This has been another great episode. For Todd Gordon, for Steve Letarte, I'm Alan Cavana. This has been NASCAR Inside the Race. We will see you next week.
This year, see more. The full field of in-car cameras.